Yeah. Yeah, because they're a nonprofit, they gotta get it back.
I call this meeting of the Hurst-Euless-Bedford Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Good evening to everybody. We're going to start this meeting with an invocation from Robert White from Freedom Church.
Thank you. Let's stand, let's pray. Almighty God, we come before you this evening, first of all, to give you praise and thanks for all that you are and all that you've done. We specifically thank you for your blessings on this area and specifically on this school district. We ask that as we engage in this meeting tonight, that you would give us wisdom, that you would endow the board with your favor, that they would make every agenda item guided by your hand and your will so that this district will be one that results in thriving students who become life-changing and transformational people in this society. We now ask that everyone who is present will be blessed by the time that they spend here, and that they will go out and live productive lives. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. White. Next, we're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance led by Dina Gomez and Dade Stickney from Bedford Junior High. You guys can come right up here and just American flag, Texas flag, and just get it started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic from which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. If you two will stay up here for just a second, we have a couple of certificates for you. First for Dade.
Dade is an 8th grade student at Bedford Junior High. He is enrolled in multiple advanced academic classes, Spanish immersion, and competes on the defending district champion Bedford Junior High gymnastics team. When he isn't occupied with school activities, he likes to ride his dirt bike, and he really enjoys building, designing, and creating things in his spare time.
And Dina.
Dina is a freshman at Bedford Junior High. She's involved in the choir program and on the girls' soccer team. Dina is also a member of the student council at Bedford Junior High. Her favorite class is Principles of Human Services, and in her spare time, she enjoys reading and is attempting to learn the guitar. Dina was born in Colombia, speaks fluent Spanish, wants to learn French, and desires to be a pediatrician when she grows up.
Thank you, too. Thank you so much for leading our pledge tonight. I'm waiting on a computer here. It's not. Tonight, the Board of Trustees is meeting in a work session and regularly scheduled in a work session and its regularly scheduled monthly meeting to officially act on the items included in the posted agenda. The board welcomes and appreciates comments and input from the community. Open forum is provided at each meeting to allow the public to address the board. There will be 2 open forums tonight. Open forum number 1 is to hear requests regarding agenda items only. Open forum number 2 is to hear requests or make comments regarding non-agenda items and will be heard at the end of the meeting. Those addressing the board are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes per meeting. The speaker should identify his or her name, group affiliation, if any, and make a brief presentation with an identified solution if one is sought. Remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole. Oral presentations may not include charges against any employee or board member by name. It is my responsibility to determine if a person addressing the board has attempted to resolve a concern informally or through the district's complaint policies. If not, the speaker will be directed to follow the appropriate policy. The board requests that all presentations be made in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner and asks speakers to monitor their own behavior. If you wish to speak during one of the open forums, please fill out one of the cards located on the table in the entry hall. Superintendent's comments. Dr. Harrington.
Yes, I've got a couple announcements. We just received word that one of our assistant principals, Jana Clark at Harwood Junior High, has been named the Texas Association of Secondary Schools Assistant Principal of the Year for the state of Texas. So pretty excited about that. Also, this week we had released the HEB-ISD Hall of Fame and Sports Hall of Fame inductees. And so we have Distinguished L.D. Bell graduate Vance Cryer, Distinguished Trinity graduate Miles Turner, Distinguished Community Leader Shaylin Clark, Distinguished Volunteer Crystal Sadler, Distinguished Former Employee Andy Cargile, Distinguished Former Board Member Faye Ballou, and on the sports we had L.D. Bell, Craig Prusnall from Trinity High School, Michael Doc Pruitt, and the honor team for this year's Hall of Fame is the L.D. Bell High School 2011 baseball team.
Nice, nice. There you go.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Harrington. Any clarifications required?
No, sir.
All right, so at this time, we'll review the board activity chart, and I'll start with Mr. Campos.
This time of year, Christmas, we, as a board, do a ton of stuff. I promise you we do more things than certainly is mentioned, and I'm only going to mention 3. Both myself as well as Mr. Cargile were once again judges at one of our elementary schools at Bel Air Spelling Bee. And all I can say is that I'm not as smart as a 5th grader. I was out probably in round 4, went about 13 rounds. It's always amazing to see the intelligence of our children. We also, this week, I participated along with many others about the senior breakfast. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity to get together with our community members, take pictures with Santa, and just share the amazing things that we are doing here in this district. And then last but not least, I'm very excited. We had a board ambassador meeting, and I'm just really excited about some of our cheerleaders that are in the district that are learning more about what we're doing.
All right, Ms. Cole.
I have mine written on my computer, which is not coming up. So I'm going to have to try to remember. We had a meeting of the North Texas Area Association of School Boards, which I happen to be president of this year. And we did a session on the importance of being a public school advocate and really teaching school board members from regions 10 and 11 how they can advocate this legislative session for public education. It was a fantastic evening. I attended my first TASB Board of Directors meeting in Austin last weekend and learned a ton. I'm sure I have a ton more to learn, but I think it's going to be a great experience.
All right, Ms. Ross.
So normally I have my very long list, and just heartbreakingly, because of my health, I haven't been able to visit any schools, the last couple of months. But trust me, after the first of the year, when I start feeling better, I will be back on campuses and ready to hang out with some little kids. And maybe some junior high kids, maybe.
Last week, I attended the HEB Chamber luncheon, membership luncheon, and I hadn't been in many, many years. And I'm grateful to attend and represent the board. And we had a great performance by the Trinity Harmony Show Choir. They did an excellent job. And then Judge Whitley spoke as his last speech, or giving us last words of wisdom before he ends his term. But it was a great lunch.
All right, thank you, board, for sharing all those things that you've attended. I'd like to say a quick thanks to our greeters this evening. You may have noticed 2 students in green blazers as you enter tonight. These students are part of the HEB ISD Student Ambassador Program, which is a select group of students chosen through an application and interview process to be the face of the district. They are trained to assist with public relations and communication services and are given the opportunity to positively promote HEB ISD while developing leadership skills. Tonight we have Jonathan Bajuk and Jackson Boswell, who are both seniors at LD Bell. This past year, we've been using this opportunity to hear the voice of our district students by asking the ambassadors questions. This month, we're asking you to think back on a time as a student. What grade do you have the best memories of, and why?
Oh, I like that question.
Hello. All right, so my name is Jonathan Bajuk, and I'm a senior at LD Bell High School. The grade that I have the best memories of is actually just last year, my junior year. And I would say that's because it was the return from all of the COVID protocols, and I was able to have my first real year of high school, I'd say. And a lot of this came down to my experience in the marching band. It was the first return for the LD Bell marching band, and it was a great experience. The memories that I developed there are so strong. The time that you spend and a group of people can mean so much as you get to know them and all work together towards one goal of producing such a beautiful and artistic show. Also last year, I went on a spring break trip, also with the band. That was to Florida for Disney World, and that was very fun as well. And besides that, it was my first year, and I was in the IB program, and it was very meaningful. A lot of teachers mean so much to me in there. And to wrap it all up, I found success in the TMEA music audition, and I made all area, and I'm very proud of that.
Hey.
Hello, my name is Jackson Boswell. I'm also a senior at LD Bell. And this question was a little tricky for me, just because I've been a student here in HEB for pre-K to 12th grade. So I've gotten to see a lot of great things, but if I had to put my finger on a single grade level, I'd probably go for 4th grade. And there are 2 reasons for that. The first one being that I had a great teacher. Her name was Miss Jill Pratt. And then the second reason being, well, I'm a Spanish immersion kid. So at that point in time, every class was being taught in Spanish, from math to science to history. And each class consisted of the same cohort of Spanish immersion kids. And so this is actually something I don't think is brought up enough when we advocate for Spanish immersion, is that while everybody knows about the benefits to learning a second language at such a young age, nobody really talks about the tight-knit community that's formed as a result of taking nearly every class with the same kids for so many years. So yeah, if I had to put my finger on one specific memory, it'd be my time in Spanish immersion in 4th grade.
Very good.
Thank you. All right, thank you for those great answers, Jonathan and Jackson. We appreciate you being here tonight. All right, next we're going to take a look at the HEB ISD 2022 holiday card design. Mr. Chandler?
Yes, sir. Good evening, board. Dr. Harrington. This is one of the most fun things that I ever get to do. All year long, these kids produce art, and we get to review it and then select it, and that becomes harder and harder every year. The kids out there that have art hanging on the display panels, I hope you'll have a chance to go by and see them. Those are the kids that earned honorable mention status. Okay, so out of nearly 1,000 entries, we had to narrow it down. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. We get a lot from our great art teachers and our great kids. And so to be able to come together and do this really recognizes some great work by our kids. So all of those out there are honorable mention students. And tonight, before you, we're going to recognize our 4 finalists and the art card winner. So we're ready to do that. Thank you again for your continued support. All right. An art card finalist, Ian Akbarli. Did I say? I didn't say that correctly. I'm sorry. Come on up. Folks, get your cameras ready, because this guy's cute and precious. Yes, hang out up here. That's awesome.
I love it.
And parents, feel free to jump up in the middle and take all the pictures you want.
Yeah, don't hang back.
There you go. Looking good. There you go. Art card finalist, Jason Nadala. He's not here. Who's going to represent? Teacher Lori Gallen. Who's our art teacher who's our art teacher? Well, come on up, Stephanie. We want to get pictures with the art teachers too. So, Ian, come on back up. We're going to get pictures with all of you and your teachers too.
Yeah, when you're the first one, you get to stand up here longer.
That's right. Very good. Holiday Art Card finalist, Harmony Luna. Yay! Who's your art teacher?
Yeah,
Oh, you
also
are
from
too?
Lakewood.
Well, good. So stand there next to her as well. Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. And our last Holiday Art Card finalist is Belle Nguyen. Art teacher is Karen Ahouse.
So exciting.
Awesome. Now you guys, okay, once we get pictures made, we're also going to have to let you turn around and show the board, because they didn't get to see your special art pieces. Okay, now y'all turn around and show your art pieces to the board. They want to see your
Love
great work.
those.
Great job.
Great job.
They're very talented, aren't they?
Yes.
That's why this job is so difficult, because selecting even just the honorable mentions is wild and a lot of fun. Congratulations, all of you, for being selected as a finalist. And our Artist of the Year that produced the Holiday Art Card. It's kind of a different situation this year, isn't it? Isn't that a neat patchwork look? That's very awesome. Unfortunately, Paloma's not able to be here tonight, but we're going to turn this over to Danielle, her art teacher, and her principal, and they're going to come up and accept this award on Paloma's behalf, and they are going to be sure and get this over to her, and so that she feels the recognition and the love. Congratulations, Paloma. Manor Elementary. Awesome. Very good. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Dr. Harrington.
Thank you, and thank you for all the hard work from everyone who had to make those difficult decisions, and congratulations to all the students who were recognized tonight. Great job. All right, now we're ready for open forum number 1. Nope, okay. All right, item 6.01 is consider approval of donations for December work session, regular board meeting. I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board approve the November 2022 donations for the December 12th regular board meeting presentation of certificates of appreciation as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the November 2022 donations for the December 12th regular board meeting presentation of certificates of appreciation as presented. Please vote.
This thing is not working very good tonight. It's not. Yeah, we need to, do you,
Vote, hand vote. All in favor? All opposed? That motion passes. All right. So this evening, our certificates will be read off by Board Vice President Rochelle Ross.
We have so many. We have 3 pages tonight, and it is a grand total of $163,940.02. We cannot do what we do in public education without our business partners, our nonprofits, our faith base. So thank you guys so much. That's almost $164,000. That's a lot of money for our kids. So thank you guys so much. The first one will be presented by Board Member Fred Campos. It is Six Stones Mission Network to LD Bell High School in the amount of $1,000, and it will be used to help fund student scholarships. And Mr. Belcher, principal, is here to accept the certificate. Also by Mr. Campos from Six Stones Mission Network to LD Bell High School, another $1,000 donation to help fund student and school needs. Board Secretary Julie Cole will present Ventures Development LLC to Trinity High School in the amount of $4,200 to the Trinity High School Angel Fund that will be used to help assist students and families in need. And Mr. Harris, principal, is here. Again, to Trinity High School from Classic Chevrolet in the amount of $63,700. That will help the Angel Fund and assist in student and family needs. And we have Mr. Harris, Stephanie Brogan, Brad Robler, Brad Kelly, Steve Buckholtz, and Dorian Jimenez will accept. And Mr. Harris wants the board to know that this is the 12th year that Classic Chevrolet has donated to Trinity High School Angel Fund, and they have over $500,000, $542,968 total that they've given to Trinity High School. Board member Matt Romero. No, he's board president. He's not a board president, Mr. Romero. From GRACE, Grapevine Relief and Community Exchange, to the Buinger CTE Academy Auto Tech Department in the amount of $1,000 vehicle donation that will be used to demonstrate to auto tech students how to front-wheel drive SUVs, how they're built and laid out, and how to service and repair them. And Deborah Harvey is here to accept. You guys did that fast. Yesenia Boykin to the Buinger CTE Auto Tech Department, a $2,000 vehicle donation that will benefit the auto tech students by providing them with experience diagnosing malfunctions and repairing convertible top mechanisms. It'll also help them to understand the difference between a sports car platform versus a sedan platform. Mr. Romero will now present to Texas Health HEB Hospital to the Buinger CTE Health Sciences Department in the amount of $4,600, an equipment donation of stretchers that will provide hands-on learning to the Buinger CTE Academy Health Science students. Board member Don Jordan Wells will now present Jartex Industries to Central Junior High. A donation in the amount of $1,000 will be used to help Central Junior High band program.
yay.
And Ms. Cumberledge is here to. Ms. Jordan Wells will now present to Debbie Ressler She is donating to Central Junior High Band, a donation in the amount of $1,000 that will go towards student instrument replacement cycle and allow the purchase of additional supplies not included in their repair budget to help with the Indianapolis trip. We love Miss Wrestler. It's good to see her. Miss Jordan Wells will present Six Stones Mission Network the Black and Blue Food Drive Award to Hurst-Euless Junior High, a donation of $500 to be used to help support students and staff with items needed throughout the year. And Principal Miss Stanton and Jody Lancaster are here to accept. Coordinator.
Coordinator extraordinaire.
I bet she does 100 other things on a daily basis. Yeah, I've seen it. Board Member Andy Cargile will now present Six Stones Mission Network to Hurst Hills Elementary, a donation in the amount of $500 that will be used to help their support their campus community to provide student incentives. Jamie Parker, Rachel Thornberry, and Karen Ahas will accept the certificate of appreciation. Yeah, I was looking, I was like, who's here? Mr. Cargile will present Bone Daddies to Viridian Elementary, a donation in the amount of $1,800 that will be used to help with staff luncheon, or that was used to help with a staff luncheon. And Miss Mans, their principal, is here to accept. And Lisa Reth Tillett is here to accept the certificate. Board Member Chris Brown will now present the Walmart Neighborhood Market number 3392 to PR and Marketing in the amount of $1,140.02 to be used to provide school supplies needed for students and staff in
Where the 2
HEB-ISD.
cents came from.
And Ms. Hollander is here to accept.
I thought it was weird that the grand total ended with 2 cents.
Mr. Brown will present the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum to HEB-ISD Social Studies Department in the amount of $80,500 that will allow all teachers to have access to resources from the Holocaust Museum. Students in grades 3, 6, 9, and 11 will have their own special programs. And Marcy Dill is here to accept.
All right, thank you for all those donations, and thank you for coming and receiving your certificates this evening. All right. All right, at this time, the board will go into closed session pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will adjourn into closed session pursuant to Sections 551.071 to 551.074.
sign in. Well, these two have to be signed back in, hold on. Because I just refreshed it. It's the opposite of, it's the board docs is crashing. Their site is crashing. Until they look at me and say, well, it's not working. I got a text from Ty saying it's really slow, and it's like, board docs is slow, not their computers. So, it's definitely, it feels like they've run out of server space. And inquiries aren't coming back. Yeah. Well, it's timing out.
I have the agenda on paper, and then everybody has an agenda, so we can go back.
Everyone here just joins the meeting, right?
They said to be able to vote, but she's still spinning.
Just give it a minute because these guys are joining back in. But again, it's one of those things like
point, you can. I just have a feeling when you go into consent, that'll be your.
Yeah, at this second. All right, we are reconvening back into open session. We are ready for our consent agenda. Does any board member have any item they would like to remove? All right, hearing none, I will accept the motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the consent agenda as presented. Please vote. Has anybody gotten it pop up?
I voted.
All right, and that motion passes. All right, we're ready for reports and presentations. Were there any questions on the report on employments, resignations, and retirements? All right, goal number 1 and 3, scorecard update. Mr. Streeter. Any questions?
And then for goal 3, similarly, we have the same trend. We've got, we're down 95 for the second 6 weeks. And so while it is yellow, it is not at our 97%. You want me to speak louder?
I don't think it's on.
Hello? Testing, testing. All right. Any questions? All right.
All right, any questions on disbursements for the month of November 2022? All right, item 11.04, bilingual and ESL annual program evaluation. Ms. Butler.
All right. Good evening. This is the Bilingual ESL Annual Program Evaluation for the school year 21-22. You all received the campus data, and so for this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on the district data. In this presentation, we'll look at the differences between bilingual and ESL. We'll look at the demographics of our emergent bilinguals, their academic progress on STAR, language proficiency in English, and then we'll look at the number of students that were able to exit the program, how many bilingual exceptions and ESL waivers we applied for, and then we'll finish with a comprehensive plan. The data included in this presentation is related to Goal 1, Indicator 1.4, which has to do with meeting federal accountability. Just a reminder, an emergent bilingual is any student who's still in the process of attaining English proficiency, and so they are able to participate in either the ESL or the bilingual program, and they are tested annually through the TELPAS assessment. All right, bilingual and ESL, so they both have the same goal, and that is for the students to attain full proficiency in English and participate equitably in school. In bilingual education, we provide both literacy and academic content in both languages. As the student progresses each year, the Spanish decreases and English increases, and we are able to exit those students in grades 4th and 5th grade due to our late exit program. Our teachers are certified in both bilingual and content. In ESL, we provide English instruction in all content areas. Our teaching is linguistically and culturally responsive. We exit students in 1st grade. That's when we begin to exit. And then the ELA and the reading teacher are the ones who are required to have the ESL certification, and we can provide this program either through pull-out or inclusionary. Here is our demographic status starting with 2013. You will see an increase in our emergent bilinguals every year. In 2014, our EB percentage was 12%. Fast forward to 22-23, that percentage has increased to 22%. And when you take into consideration our monitor students, that percentage goes up to 24%. Here's the ethnicity race report. Just one thing to look at. We now have more Hispanic and Latino students than our white students. The academic progress of our emerging bilinguals. This is the STAR ESL elementary performance. One thing to consider is that these students are testing in English, which is their second language, and so we are looking at the approaches level. Every student's made nice gains in every content. Here's our junior high, and here are our scores for EOC. And now we look at STAR bilingual. This is different because our students are testing in Spanish, which is their native language, and so now we're going to be looking at the meets. Also, another thing to consider is that, like I said earlier, our bilingual students start to exit in 4th and 5th grade, so you start seeing those numbers decrease, and by the time they are in 4th and 5th grade, we have a very small number of students left in bilingual. These students are usually our newcomers, they have our recent arrivals, and so they're even low in their own native language. English proficiency among our students. So we use the TELPAS, and this assesses students in K through 12. It's a federal assessment requirement of ESSA, and we assess the ELPS. Each domain, the listening, speaking, reading, and writing, is part of this test, and each domain contributes to 25% of the composite score. There's also the TELPAS Alt, which has been designed for students who are emergent bilinguals and have a significant cognitive disability. It's for grades 2nd through 12, and usually students who take the STAR Alt also take the TELPAS Alt, and all of the domains are holistically rated using observable behaviors. Grades K and 1, the TELPAS, it's also holistically rated in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And each domain is then provided a proficiency level of beginning, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high. And these results will really let us know how well the students are using English in academic settings. In grades 2 through 12, this past year, the reading, listening, and speaking were online. The writing was holistically rated, but this year, TEA is making a change. Writing will now go online. We were told that this year it will be rated by a person. Next year, 23 and 24, it's going to be rated by an AI. And then they also receive proficiency ratings of beginning, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high for each domain. The yearly progress on TELPAS, this takes the scores from previous year and compares them to this current year. Basically, we want to make sure that our students are progressing one proficiency level every year, or they're obtaining that advanced high rating. The goal from TEA is 36, and HEB-ISD yearly progress measure was 45%. Here are our TELPAS results for our elementary. Just a couple of things to keep in mind. If you look at 6th grade, we went from 280 students to 352. And so even though our emergent bilingual population is increasing, our teachers are definitely continuing to meet the needs of our students. Here are the TELPAS results for secondary. 11th grade took a dip, but we look at, they went from 111 students to 188 students. In the accountability measure, students in their first year of enrollment are excluded from Accountability performance calculations. Students in their second year of enrollment are included in accountability performance calculations. Those students whose parents have denied any ESL services do not receive an EB performance measure and are included in the same manner as other students. And then Star Alt 2 assessments are included regardless of the number of years in U.S. schools. Now we're going to see the number of students who met exit criteria. So once a student has demonstrated control of the English language and they've had success on tests such as STAR, TELPAS, and a positive teacher evaluation, then those students are deemed as not needing ESL or bilingual support anymore. ESL students can start exiting in first grade. Bilingual students start exiting in fourth grade due to our late exit transitional program model. And then once they do exit, they are monitored for 4 years, 2 years on paper, 2 years through PEAMS. Here is the exit criteria chart. You'll see 3 rows. The first row, the students have to reach advanced high in all 4 domains. The second row, they have to pass some form of reading assessment. And the third row, they have to have a teacher evaluation. Here are the numbers in comparison from 21-22. I will say that the exit criteria is pretty rigorous for our students. Bilingual exceptions and ESL waivers, when we have teachers that do not have the proper certification, we have to file a bilingual exception or an ESL waiver. We are, according to TEA, we are to provide bilingual education for all 4 languages. These are the top languages that we have. We have bilingual education for Spanish, but we do not have one for Arabic, French, and Nepali. And so the ESL waiver that was filed with TEA, we had 39 teachers that did not have their ESL certification. And the ESL department, in conjunction with the HR, we have worked together to ensure that this communication was sent out to teachers. TEA offers a free online course, and then we also offer after-school training for our teachers. We also reimburse teachers once they get their testing, or I'm sorry, their certification. We reimburse them as well. And then the bilingual exception, we did have to file for 596 classroom teachers because of these high numbers right here. And then the comprehensive plan. Last year, we were awarded extra units at the secondary level. Thank you so much for that. We are going to continue providing that support to our teachers. We have also we're providing instructional rounds for our secondary ESL teachers. And then I also have a full-time elementary instructional support specialist who has been helping me ensure that we are providing K-2 Spanish language arts curriculum, and she's out supporting the bilingual and Spanish immersion teachers. We also have language acquisition coaches at 15 of our schools. We are piloting at 1 junior high. And the goal of these language acquisition coaches is for them to build the capacity in our classroom teachers by providing on-site PD to our teachers. Of course, they need the support and the training as well, and so we pull them out. I think this year they're being pulled 16 times, and during that time they are provided with coaching, PD, ESL strategies, best practices, and literacy strategies. Professional development for our bilingual K-2, we want to make sure that they understand the new curriculum, they understand the new assessment tool, and then we also provide them with literacy best practices as well. 3rd through 5th, the majority of our training has focused on the STAR new item types and the instructional implications, but we are also providing them support with the materials, assessment tools, and then just how to incorporate some academic conversations. This is Summit K-12. It's an online platform. It is available for our newcomer and beginner students, and it's really there to build the foundations. As you can see, it even shows the student the proper placement of the mouth to make the proper sounds. System 44 is available at the secondary level. It is also providing foundational phonemic skills to our older students. Then we have Read 180, which provides reading comprehension and writing. Here are some examples. This is one of new item types. And then we have Elevation. This is for the teachers. It's not for the students. It's an online bank of strategies. Teachers can search by strategy, by the content area, or by the language domain. Once they select a strategy, it tells them how to do it. It provides them any embedded documents, and then if teachers still don't understand how to implement the strategy, there is an embedded brief video in there as well that they can watch. The videos are only 2 to 3 minutes. We also started additional professional development. They're called ESL Barriers and Bridges. We have 4 sessions throughout the year. They're all after school, and they're open to all pre-K through 12 teachers, administrators, librarians, whoever wants to come. The focus is on supporting teachers with their newcomers, scaffolding for them, building their oral language and their background knowledge as well. And that's it. Any questions?
No, and I'd like to say that a non-English speaker that comes to one of our schools has a year exemption. And really 9 months. And we always used to say that if we went to Germany and had to learn German in 9 months and take a test, we couldn't take a 5th grade test.
Correct.
So that's how great a job we're doing in this district with those kids to get them prepared in 9 months to take those tests. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I have a question about, you talked about the student writing and the rating for this year, and then in the coming years being rated by AI. Dr. Norgard, are there other tests that are rated by AI? Is this the first one?
It's going to be our first one.
And we don't have, do we have any indication from TEA how that behaves, what the programming is?
No, we have very limited.
And we won't.
And we won't, and right now, they're saying that's what's going to happen in 23, 24. Frequently we've had years that,
They say one thing and something else happens.
Yes.
Okay, that's a little, that seems a little soon for that kind of thing, especially with this group.
I know.
AI can sometimes with languages be harder, more
Well,
difficult.
They already do that in the speaking. It's already assessed through AI. And so I think that is why students have a difficult time exiting because of speaking. And I often wonder, is it because of the pronunciation, the accent?
There are some biases built into
Right.
AI.
Right.
Okay.
So I have 2 questions, Ms. Butler and Dr. Harrington. First off, I echo what Mr. Cargill said. This is phenomenal. And I see a lot of green. I mean, I see significant increases, changes from 2021 to 2022. Some of them in the 20s. And I just want to hear from you, what has significantly changed, or what are we doing better that's caused this huge jump?
You know, we have the language acquisition coaches who I try to train them best as possible. And so they are, we purchase a lot of books. We do book studies. We also bring in sidelights. We bring in some professional development for them, because I feel that if they don't have their tools, then they can't go and support the teachers. So that's one. I've been working year after year and trying to build their tool belt. At the secondary level, this is the 3rd year of implementing System 44 and Read 180.
Yeah.
And when we get newcomers at the secondary level, our teachers are not equipped with teaching phonemic awareness. That's just not something that a 9th grade ELA teacher would teach. And so having this support, I think, has really made a difference. And so we're seeing that now.
Okay, that's awesome. The last question, you mentioned that a few parents basically opt out or deny. Is there a lot of them, or is it just a few?
There's probably around 130.
Okay.
So sometimes we do have parents who do not want their child in bilingual, and so they put them in ESL, or they say, I don't want bilingual nor ESL. I don't want them labeled.
Got it.
We don't have very many, but there's always going to be some that deny it. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, district benchmark assessment, Dr. Norgard.
Good evening. Last time I was here to talk to you about district benchmark assessment, it was for math. Tonight we are looking at language arts, and we have several grades to go through. So I know that you've had this to review, and I know that the charts are in the same format they always are. So some slides I'm going to fly by unless you need me to stop and address further. According to our strategic plan, the data that we're looking at tonight is interim data for our meets and master's grade level on STAR EOC. I do need to stop and give a little context because we talked about math last time. Let's think about language arts. So in addition to the STAR redesign, which you'll hear more about. You're starting to get a taste for that. That's in all subject areas, but language arts, in addition to the items look different, the actual content on the test is different. We've been talking last year as well about the separation. We used to have in 3rd through 8th every year had a reading test, and in 4th and 7th they also got writing. Then 9th and 10th have a combined reading writing. Well, now it's not a reading test, it's language arts. So reading and writing are being assessed at every grade 3rd through 8th and continuing to both be assessed in English 1 and English 2 at 9th and 10th. So there's a lot to do with trying to include both of those pieces, including an extended constructed response, and you'll get a look at what that entails for our students all the way down to 3rd grade, large chunks of writing. So for this reason, I have the historical data in there, actually, because it shows a pattern when we get to the last grade that I would like for you to see. But I don't want you to put too much into the predictive of those historical years because the test is very different for language arts. So I showed you this chart last time and we looked at math examples. There is one unique item type to ELA. It is that extended constructed response, the composition or essay that we use to refer to. But I have quick examples of each of these new item types because even though some of them are the same types that were on math, they look different. Text entry for language arts is different than in math. I also want you to see for each of these, I tried to carefully pick an example from different grades, and also on the language arts test, before I'm answering anything, I'm reading something. And what I'm reading can be very different. So it might be a poem. And then this is an example of hot text where they're going to click on, you can see the highlighted sections. I have to select the right section. It could be a typical passage. This is a multi-select. We had those in math. It tells them there's 2 correct answers. So there's 5 sentences highlighted. I need to pick 2 of those. I could be reading drama. This is an example from 4th grade. So I'm reading a play. This is a short constructed response. So 475 characters is the maximum for this. But to really justify, and as our ELA team has been working with their teachers on how to build this capacity in their students, when it asks for 475 characters, they don't expect 50 characters to do. Here's moving on up to grade 5. They may also be reading a letter, maybe what they're looking at to review. This is an inline choice where they hover over and it will drop down some choices. Okay, paired passages we refer to when there's 2 different passages to read before I even get to the questions. And then some of the questions will be about the first passage, some of them will be about the second passage, some will be a comparison between the 2, and starting with our STAR redesign, paired passages start all the way down in 3rd grade. So this is an example. This would be text entry. So in math, it looked more like, a calculator screen, and now, of course, I'm actually typing some text.
Just out of curiosity, to get to the question, because they have the passages that they'll read first, and then does the question just pop up next, or do they have to click to it?
So the passage will stay over here that they can scroll up and down through, but yes, then they do click next through the questions.
So if they get to the question, can they toggle back over to the passage to read it again if they need to?
The passage stays there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But no, they may need to scroll up and down within the passage to see that. Okay, so this is the first example of an extended constructed response. I included it for grade 7, one of our upper grades, because the difference in all these grades that I'm reporting on tonight, for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, our youngest students, we did not give them an extended constructed response on this first DBA of the year. They had some short constructed response. We were working on some of the other item types because we've still really been working in the classroom through our units of study with writing and building up to the extended constructed response. But they will, on STAR, extended constructed response with 2,300 characters is all the way down to 3rd grade. And you can see just reading through the question of what all they actually need to respond to. We are seeing some examples. There was a 5th grade example. I do have our Ms. Phillips, our ELA coordinator for K-5 with me tonight, that we had looked at together that was a long nonfiction test. A lot of these are going to be based in your science and your social studies is what they need to read in order to respond. And there's a 5th grade example that's difference between a clipper and a steamship and which had the greatest impact on society. So there's a lot going on here, just in the reading itself and the background knowledge that they need to analyze. This is an 8th grade example, so sometimes the passages will also have some kind of text features they need to refer to. And the match table grid. So instead of just a single question, I've got to, for each row in that table, I have to make a decision before that question can be scored. And then we had multi-select already, where I'm choosing 2 things, possibly 3, whatever they tell me it needs. Multi-part, if I don't get part A, it doesn't matter about part B. I will earn no points for part B, even if I corrected the right answer, if A was not correct. Okay, because they say basically it was a lucky guess. Because you can see the relationship here, what's the counter argument, and then what's the evidence for the counter argument. So if I happen to pick the right evidence, but it wasn't the right counter argument, I'm not going to get the points for that second part. So multi-part is a little different than multi-select. So that's just a brief overview of how different this test is. So we'll jump into the data. You know that I'm going to look at the combined, but you do have English and Spanish represented there for you. So here's where we are this year in 3rd grade. These are the performance objective targets that you'll hear me repeat, set on last year's 3rd graders on a very different test. Okay, it was a reading-only test with a different group of students. So we are down from where we were last year on this very different kind of test. We are going to work on building those skills. We also have a little complication in the history. Remember me last year talking about that DBA 1.5 because we had a technology glitch, so the date was very different. So we're just going to look and say there is still work to be done to get towards those goals. We can look at the history and see how typically in a year we grow over time. Since this is 3rd grade, I do not have cohort performance history. It's their first time taking DBA or STAR. As we move into 4th grade, here's where we are currently performing our combined English and Spanish. Very few students testing in Spanish, as Ms. Butler, addressed in her report. Here are the performance objectives targets set on a very different test last year with a different group of students. However, we have a green arrow at approaches. We'll take that +1, but we know that there's work to do in meets and masters if we're wanting to end up with those targets where we would like to see them. We know that the growth is possible in what we typically see across a year with our different groups of 4th graders historically. Now I have some cohort performance because these students that are now in 4th grade, those targets were set based on last year's 4th graders, but here's how this group of students did when they were in 3rd grade. So this is that typical pattern we see. DBA 1, and then we're going to grow as we move through the year. We dip down. Perhaps we've dipped a little more this year with this new test type when we've moved because we're now in the beginning of 4th grade testing at end of year standards and where we would like to be according to our targets by the end of the year. For 5th grade, here is our combined student performance. Again, very few students testing in Spanish. These are the targets set on a very different test with a different group of students from last year. We again saw some movement at approaches. So that's where we're starting to get a hold is at approaches, but that's that low bar. We're going to continue pushing to that meets and masters is where we need to see some improvement. Although if you look back from 2 years prior, there were big jumps last year, so the fall was not as great. The historical data of how we grow across a year typically in 5th grade. And for this group, since we have data from 3rd and 4th grade for this group of students, we can see not the big growth across their 3rd grade year, but they did pull up as they moved through their 4th grade year. So we've had that dip and we're ready to see them grow again towards those targets. 6th grade, everyone's testing in English. So these were our current year performance. These are the targets set on last year's 6th graders on a very different test. You catching my phrase yet? We do see some areas where we are going to need to grow compared to where we were last year and the kind of growth that we typically get. And we have more history, although this is when you start looking back across history, you can see where these students' experiences have been interrupted with an O-star, with that DBA 1.5 instead of our DBA 1. But they did have a nice steady climb across last year. 7th grade, Okay, so here's the current year performance and the performance targets based on a very different test with a different group of students. So we see it was just a very, very small drop at approaches. So I think we're not as far off on the approaches, but that meets and masters, we're going to need to continue to track and really watch how we're setting those goals and interventions. The history across the year, lots of data on this group of students, but you can see across each year they have grown. So even though we're dipping down, we know that growth is possible, but these are some pretty high standards set on, that different test with a different group of students. So we're going to continue to watch them work towards these goals as they grow throughout their 7th grade year. 8th grade, here's our current year performance. The targets, I don't even have to say it now because you know it, and where we are. So actually a nice gain at approaches, but we do have room at meets and masters to grow. But we do typically see a good deal of growth across the year. This group also, you can kind of see where their interruption came in their STAR testing experience, but they had very minimal slide between their 6th and 7th grade year. So we need them to come back strong for us here to reach those targets. And when you look at where they were at 7th grade STAR at the end of year, actually not so far off compared to when you look at their DBA 1 this year. So 9th grade English 1, last test in this report. Here's where we are. Here's the performance objectives. Now, the reason I want to point this out, I stopped at 9th grade. English 1 has always been a combined reading and writing test. So what's new for this group of students is the new item types, not new item types and new expectations for my content. Look at how much more in alignment we are with our targets, and look at the green arrows. So that really tells us there's an adjustment going on, not just about the item types, but the content. We are working on the item types. Our students are getting experiences. You saw that in the math report. So curriculum has been working really hard to get that exposure to the new item types. There's just something else happening in ELA because the test itself, the content, has changed. You can see the typical growth, and we've got all kinds of data because I went back only to 4th grade. We've got all kinds of years of history for these students, but we see that those targets are easily achievable by this group of students. We just need to continue to support them with those experiences. So we're supporting them with an instructional focus in many of our grades. 3rd through 5th grade, teachers are used to hearing this phrase from our coordinators and in their trainings that they are concentrating on oral rehearsal. Students write the way they talk. I mean, we have our receptive language, what am I listening, what am I reading, but that expressive, what do I say, what do I write? And so if I only sit down and write and I don't have that opportunity for the oral rehearsal, I haven't talked about it, I'm not using that academic and genre-specific vocabulary, it's not suddenly going to show up in my writing. If I never spoke about it, it's not going to show up in my writing. And then in particular in 6th through 9th grade, that short or extended constructive response is part of instruction every week. They are writing in 3rd through 5th as well, but there's a particular style in which they're working that in 6th through 9th grade. And professional development for our teachers, that we need to continue to build them. If they have been a 3rd, 5th, 6th, or 8th grade teacher, they had a reading test. Let's make sure that they have the skills that they need for that literary essay. So we have trainings coming up. These are some of the trainings that we have already conducted to be sure that our teachers have the right experience to lead our students. Questions about language arts? Yes, sir.
So Dr. Norgard, or I'll even extend this to Ms. Phillips. Educate me or give me an example. I'm not talking about the test itself, but here I'm a 3rd grader and now this is multi-select, and as Julie said, I've got my passage here, I go up and down, and are we having to spend a lot of time on keyboarding to deal with this different kind of test?
We have been talking about keyboarding a lot in general and where to best work that in and that practice. We've been looking at the research of the best use of that and where is it something, where we're losing instructional time in the classroom versus it a support or an app or something that students can use and rehearse on their own. But those are definitely skills that we do have to build with the students.
I know you're very data-driven. I mean, with this transition, is that affecting scores anyway? I mean, I got adults that are real intelligent that probably couldn't do half of the stuff that you just showed us from a kid's perspective.
Ms. Phillips, do you have any additional you want to speak to?
Do you think keyboarding is having any effect on scores? It's a hypothetical question. I'm just kind of curious.
I think that it would be. I will also say that at this point in time, what the TEA is stating is on the short constructive responses that as long as it is clear and effective, those are the terms that they're using, that students will be given credit. Now, on the extended constructive response, conventions such as punctuation and capitalization, all of those things are very important to their score. But with the short constructive response, they're not really they're stating that they're not counting off of that. And again, the terms that TEA are using are clear and effective communication.
Right.
So,
Gotcha. Thank you.
a little bit of, I don't know.
Any other questions about language arts? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Norgard. All right, next we will be hearing from Dr. Harrington about his superintendent listening tour. Dr. Harrington.
Okay, as part of the new superintendent's entry plan, we created the listening tour. And one of the main reasons that I put together the listening tour was, you know, as the board made a decision not to hire a search firm and to hire me internally. The result was, though, we didn't get some of the information a lot of times that come from hiring the search firm, the surveys, et cetera. And so what we wanted to do was to get out and do our listening tour, to hear from our community, our parents, our students, et cetera, so we could make sure that we were hearing their needs, their wants. So we began the listening tour this fall. So the listening tour involved 7 secondary student meetings with groups of, it was usually 15 to 20 students. We had 2 staff open meetings at the Trinity and Bell auditoriums. We had 2 parent community forums, one at Bell and one was at the Central Junior High. Then we had another community forum, which was our faith-based groups all came together. And so we brought those groups together and we asked them pretty much the same questions. What makes HEB ISD special? What word comes to mind? One word comes to mind when you think of HEB. What are HEB ISD's greatest challenges? As superintendent, what should my top priorities be for this year? And the last one that was with all the groups was, is there anything additional you would like? We wanted to have an open-ended where just tell us what you want to tell us. Additionally, with the staff, we said, what support or additional resources do you need to be successful? And what can we do to support employee wellness at your campus or work location? What we added with the students was, who stands out at your school as an exceptional teacher or leader? And I can tell you, Mr. Hollander has compiled that list, and the ones that we did get, we're sending notes to all those staff members. So what did we learn? Well, from the students, some of the things is kids love seeing the world return to normal. We heard that over and over. And I think it was our favorite one. It said, school is fun again. You know, and so it was, you know, we had some trying times, but what we heard over and over from the students was the return to normalcy was something they looked forward to. From the staff, we heard a lot about the well-being and emotional concern for both kids and their fellow staff members. We heard concerns on behavior, student behavior. We heard a lot about the changing workforce. We heard a lot about the inflation, what that factor having on that workforce. From the parents, social emotional concerns of students, and then something that did come up, the growing special education population and meeting the needs of that group. Just as a point, we were a little over 8% for many years, and we're over 13% special education population now, and so serving that group. Combined, the students, the parents, the community, all so much enjoyed the opportunity to be heard. And it was really neat because it was said by multiple groups was, can we do this again? And I appreciated that because it did come across as a one-time event, you know, and it doesn't have to be a one-time event. We really saw how powerful it was for people to get together to share their ideas and to be heard. And so we will plan on, we can easily make this a yearly process. How exactly we'll do it, I'll work with Ms. Hollander, but it is clear that people want the opportunity to be heard. So we put together some wordles. But, you know, you look at the words, what did we hear in one word? Well, you see very big, diversity. The other words that really came across, and as I'm looking at this, and I was like listening again and hearing from our people, the word community, the word excellence, family. One of my favorites was home, all right? Competitive, quality. I mean, I'm not going to list them all, but those were some of the ones, and as I went through the process, hearing those words from our groups. Challenges, well-being, staffing, retention, growth, and one that kept coming up just a little differently, but facilities also kept coming up. So plans to go forward, I think I kind of already said it. I don't know that we learned a whole lot of things that we didn't have a pretty good idea of, but I think everyone appreciated having the opportunity to share that. And I have to be honest, I really enjoyed the opportunity of getting out there and have those conversations and let people be heard. But the plans going forward, you know, we've got some priorities. I got them on the next page, but the thing is, we have to keep doing this. I have to keep getting out, hearing from our students, our staff, our community, our parents, et cetera, and keep those opportunities out there. So as we went through, what priorities? I think it's priorities we really, but it really cemented that we were on the right track. Safety and security, teacher retention, staff well-being, aging facilities, legislative issues, and I put that in there. That word didn't come up, but a lot of the things that people said we need are things we don't control. And just flat out, there are things that are going to have to be addressed by the legislature. There's not things we can control at this time. So connection and community, you know, we're going to keep connecting with the community. I thought this is a good time for a quote, so we pulled one out. Helen Keller, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." So I'm going to keep getting out there, working with our people and hearing from them, and we're going to do so much. So any questions on the listening tour?
Thank you, Dr. Harrington.
Is there anything you need from this board as you think about going forward and continuing this?
You know, as far as that process, probably not. I think from what the board has done, the board has been incredibly receptive to those needs. As you looked at that priority list, we've already begun addressing those areas. And that's the support we need from the board is I mean, safety and security, employee wellness, the things that we can do. When we've come to you with a proposal, you have said, yes, well, these are the things that we're going to have to do to meet the needs, safety concerns, to make sure we have the teachers in place. I mean, that's what this board can continue to do. And then advocate for us, for HEB-ISD. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Harrington. All right, before we start action items, I just wanted to repeat from the statement that I made at the beginning of the meeting, that if anyone's here who wants to speak during open forum number 2, which will be at the end of action items, there are cards out in the entryway that need to be filled out, and those can be given to Ms. Hollander, and we will put you in the queue to speak during open forum number 2. All right. There were no items removed from consent agenda, so item 12.02, consider approval of the 2023-2024 official school calendar. Were there any further questions on the school calendar? I'll accept the motion.
I move that the board approve the 2023-2024 official school calendar.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, for the board to approve the 2023-2024 official school calendar. Please vote. And that motion passes. Consider approval of campus improvement plans. Were there any questions on the campus improvement plans? I'll accept the motion.
I move we approve the campus improvement plans as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, to approve the campus improvement plans as submitted. Please vote. Did you get them?
I don't have anything.
She's working on it.
And if we need to switch to hand votes, we can do that. Okay. And that motion passes. Consider approval of updates to the 2022-2023 staffing table. Ms. Tuttle.
So we're asking for 7 additional teacher assistant units, and you see that 2 of those are for in-school suspension at the high school, keeping students there on campus for that particular program for in-school suspension. And then the additional 5 are exactly what we've been talking about tonight with our increase in special ed numbers. And you see that those are across various programs and various campuses in our district. Any questions?
Is that a new program? First I've heard of in-school suspension at the high schools.
The high schools would like to do the in-school suspension at the high school. That way they can reduce some of their out-of-schools.
First I've heard of it.
All right. Anything?
For more minor offenses?
You know,
or-
kind of surprised, you know. By the way, we tried it. Good luck.
All right. Any further questions? I'll accept the motion.
I move that the board approves the new units as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, for the board to approve the new units as submitted. And that motion passes. Consider approval of RFP 22-20, Consultant Services for Employee Benefits Administration.
Okay, we didn't originally have me to get up here and speak on this, so I'm going to have Mr. Corbo come up. He is of course, our purchasing director, and he's going to speak a little bit on this because I understand there might be some questions. What I will say while he's coming up is benefit services are something that's a little different than what we normally look at as far as awards, because we don't pay these people anything. But they are providing a huge service to the district and more importantly to our employees. So it is just it's a best practice that we look at this periodically and try to make sure we are getting what's best for the district and our employees, and that's what this was about. And I'm going to let Mr. Kerbo speak on it a little further and answer any questions you may have.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to visit with you about this. There are bids that are nice and neat, that are easy to administer, and we roll along with those, bring them recommendation to you, and easy to understand and take a vote. This is not one of those, because there are a lot of moving parts to it. For employee benefits, obviously, we rely on the expertise of those who are qualified to do so, to go out to market on our behalf, find what offerings are there that are beneficial to our employees, and get competitive pricing and bring them to us for recommendation. And that's what this this service would be, is to find a qualified administrator to do that on our behalf. We issued solicitations to a number of folks. We did receive 5. 2 were the cream of the crop that came up to the surface as we evaluated those. So we invited those folks in here to provide us a brief presentation about their expertise, what made them unique, what made them qualified to do this service, and then provide us a demonstration of their the enrollment system for our employees to use to make their benefit selection. That's the critical piece of this whole thing. The first piece of it is obviously going out to market and bringing those benefits to us, such as the accidental death and benefit, dental benefit, vision, and all those voluntary benefits that are paid by our employees. And then the second piece is how to administer those into an enrollment process that makes it manageable for our staff and easy for our employees to understand. So we did see 2 very good, very qualified benefit enrollment systems, and the recommendation we're bringing to you tonight is to retain the services of our current vendor, which is Financial Benefit Services.
All right, any questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Kerbo.
I do have a question, Matt.
Oh, okay.
So the recommended action is to approve the contract. Do we have the contract?
We did include an independent consulting agreement in the bid file. We were so late in getting this compiled and ready for posting on the agenda that we didn't have time to get the agreement completed. That has been drafted and submitted to the vendor for their review and execution. We expect them to provide that to us, and we'll bring that to either Dr. Harrington or Dobie to sign on our behalf with board approval.
You want to amend the motion then?
Well, I'd like,
question is,
well,
how
I
can we
think
approve a
to
contract without a contract?
accurately encapture what we're doing is we're approving
Contract we don't see.
Dr. Harrington's authority to enter into a contract, but I don't want us approving a contract that's not in front of us.
Right,
Yeah.
just amend the motion.
Or just restate the
However you
motion.
want to state it.
Just restate it.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say amend the motion. State it in the way that you think we should vote on.
So I would move that the board authorize Dr. Harrington or his approved designee to enter into the contract to provide consultation services for Employee Benefits Administration be awarded to Financial Benefits Services, FBS.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve Dr. Harrington or his designee to enter into a contract to provide consultation services for Employment Benefits Administration be awarded to Financial Benefit Services, FBS, as presented. Did I get that right?
You did.
All right, please vote.
She's got to type it up now.
We apologize, we're dealing with a slow system this evening. And that motion passes. All right, we're ready to consider approval of financial statements for the months of September and October 2022. Mr. Williams?
All righty. What you have before you are the financial statements for 2 months, actually, September and October. That's why we always present to at the December meeting, as it's the beginning of our new year. So what we'll be looking at is October, because obviously September's included in there too. So looking, Ty, can we pull that up? That's okay. There we go. I can drive it, I think. Okay. So let's look at the general fund first, and you know what I'll say is obvious, is that we're early in the school year, so there's just not a lot happening other than we do a lot of purchasing at the beginning of the year. And of course, you already know the majority of our budget is payroll. So, but it does, when we do so much upfront purchasing at the beginning of the year, it does kind of skew our numbers a little bit. So, looking at our ending fund balance, we have $155,226,591. That represents expenditures over revenue because it is earlier in the year. We will see that flip-flop as we start bringing in tax collections. We'll start ramping up in January. So that'll change, and of course our revenues will exceed our expenditures at that point. So as of the end of October, we were sitting at 18.14%, so that's right in line with 2/10 of our school year would be 20%, so we're right in line there. So the general fund is performing as expected. The general fund expenditure matrix, better known as the Wrestler Report, and Miss Wrestler's not here to hear that. So, but maybe she's listening online. Anyway, that is on page 8 of your detailed financials. Payroll is sitting at the end of October at $26,614,659. And for the current period, that is sitting at 79%, which, as I said, that our numbers are generally skewed at the beginning of the year because we have so many higher expenditures in other categories starting up. So that will go inch closer to the 87-88% you typically see later in the year. Utilities of 602,062, we're sitting at 2%, and instructional supplies of 622,139 are at 2%. So those are our top 3 biggest categories for expenditures. Food service fund, reference pages 9 and 10. Again, here's another one, expenditures exceed revenues. It's early in the year. We have, put in for reimbursements, but we have not received and booked those back onto our books just yet. So that again, those revenues will exceed expenditures as we go out further. Department's operating extremely well, but like a broken record, we continue to be short-staffed, and we have looked at this every way we can, and we would just, I think Dr. Harrington and we just determined there's not people out there that we don't know what we got to do to try to get people to apply, but they're doing a really good job just based on with the number of people they have. They are at 12.34% of their budget. Again, that's well within the 20% for this time of year, and the fund is performing as expected. Debt service fund, reference pages 11 and 12. Of course, the debt service revenues will begin to increase when tax collections start coming in. The first debt service payment of $7.280 million will be due on February 15th, and I assure you we will have that there before then. The second and final payment will be $29,500,813.88, and that won't be due until August 15th of next year. And our total debt service owed for this coming next year is $36,781,627.76. But I will remind you, we will be defeasing some bonds, so that will change some of this up as we get into the spring when we start looking at doing that, like we talked about back when. Pre-K, CK program, the fund balance there is $313,897. Revenues exceed expenditures by $228,475. Those expenditures are at 16.58%, again, below the 20% threshold. The program is performing as expected for this time of year. Special revenue funds, those are our governmental, federal funds, different special program funds, whatnot. Those are, as we say, every meeting, self-sufficient. So those are monies that we get allotted through grants, and we basically spend what we get, and what makes it weird is it's spread out over multiple years, so those numbers are always kind of skewed. But they're setting at 19.09% of the budget, so still under the 20% for this time of year. And those programs are tracking as expected as well. Campus activity funds. Fund balance $3,070,134. That's represents revenues over expenditures of $296,397. And that funds are, with school back in session, they are performing well and performing as expected. Series 2018 bond fund. That fund balance is sitting at $24,555,961. That represents revenues over expenditures of $75,623, which the only revenues we're getting on those are interest incomes, and we just haven't had any big expenditures out of that fund just yet, only $12,875, but those expenditures are coming with Bel Air. We are spending that money right now. So those will start showing up in the next month. Of course, since we have no new bond funds to issue, there are no other new revenues other than interest revenue for this fund. And as you already know, most of those funds are being used for the Bel Air rebuild. Technology department still has some of their budget left from that bond program. I don't know off the top of my head. I think they had about $2 million at some point. I don't know. Is that right? It's less than that now. So that's what part of that fund is for. So. And this is a new one. This is Possible Bond Series 2024. So as we move forward and we're working with architects and paying architects and engineers and different things, there are expenses. So we want to track those expenses. So this is a new fund that's related to a possible bond election in the future. Should we have that bond election and should that bond election pass, all of these expenses can be charged back to those bond funds. So we want to, and reimburse the general fund. So we want to track those and keep up with those, and that's what we're doing with this fund here. And the locally defined capital projects fund, that's sitting at $58,747,758. That is expenditures over revenue of $46,062. As you know, those are funds based on available funds that are transferred at the discretion of the school board, which we have done a couple of times since I've been here, and we'll keep looking at doing that. These funds, again, are currently used in conjunction with the bond fund, 2018 bond funds for Bel Air, that's a hard word for me to say, Bel Air Elementary rebuild. And then, of course, the transition center that's being remodeled back behind us, the admin parking lot, which is in the process of being redone. Hopefully get that done by the time we come back from the break. And then finishing up a few other little projects. Of course, we talked about and recommended several new projects at the October facilities meeting, and so you will start seeing some of those being brought forward to the board for approval in the near future. So any questions on anything?
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any questions?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to budget transfers.
Do we have to vote on that?
Oh, sorry. I forgot this is not just a work session, it's also a regular meeting. I'll accept a motion on the financial statements.
I move that the board approve the financial statements for September and October 2022.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the financial statements for September and October 2022. Please vote. That motion passes. All right, now we can move on to the next item, budget transfers.
Okay, budget transfers for this month are super light, $420 as a matter of fact. And that's moving money from Function 21, Instructional Leadership, to Maintenance and Operations 51 for, I believe that was for technical support for the lead HEB meetings. That's all we have for budget transfers for the month.
All right, any questions on that budget transfer? I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board approve the budget transfer and amendment request for December 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve budget transfer and amendment request for December 2022. Please vote. That motion passes. All right. Item 12.08, consider approval of interlocal agreements with cities of Hurst, Euless, and Bedford.
Okay, again, this was something we weren't planning to speak on, but we did a Friday update, but I understand there might be a question or two. So again, what these are interlocal agreements that technically we probably should have already had in place to work with the city, because we always have been working with the city. HEB and the cities have worked extremely well together, and we do what we can to help each other out where we can, when we can. What these agreements will do is make that easier, make it legal, to where we can share services, we can share parts. I think I gave you an example of a water line repair coupling that they may keep tons of them on the shelf because they fix lots of big water lines, whereas we don't, but every once in a while we might need to. So we can actually purchase that from them at their cost or an average cost, as was outlined in the agreements. And what that average costing method is in there for, it's basically a stopgap, or it's to keep either entity, the selling entity of that part or service or whatever, from losing money when they replace it. Because, you know, if we sell something to the city and it cost us, as in the example, $1, but then we got to turn around and put it back on our shelf for $1.50. So by averaging that cost, it lets us make a little profit on what we sold to the city, or vice versa. They sold to us, and then it's basically just to keep either entity from losing money on that. Of course, at the end of the day, if we don't feel like that price is a good price, or we don't want to use that, we don't have to purchase it from the cities, or nor do they have to purchase from us. This gives us that opportunity. So if that makes sense.
Any questions?
More questions on that?
I'll accept the motion.
I move that the board approve the interlocal agreements with the cities of Hurst, Euless, and Bedford as presented.
Second.
Excuse me. I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the interlocal agreements with the cities of Hurst, Euless-Bedford as presented.
And I did want to add real quick that,
Finish this, then you can. Gotta finish the motion first.
okay, go ahead, sorry. Got a little ahead of myself.
What are you gonna add? It might affect.
Oh, it does not affect that. I just want to say this also came about as part of our collaboration meetings with the city and trying to find more ways to work together as a team and all that. And I just forgot to add that one ago, so, sorry.
That motion passes. All right, next we will look at approval of CSP 22-17 interactive flat panel installations. Mr. Jackson?
Good evening. Information Services is requesting approval of the installation services for the 743 interactive display panels. Part of that installation services will be the removal of the existing projectors, smart boards, and the installation of the 75-inch interactive touch panel display. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on this project.
Are there any questions on the flat panel installations?
I've got a question. Hi, Mr. Jackson. So in September, we purchased 743 for $1.9 million, and that included the wall mount, correct?
Yes, sir.
So now we're paying $2.6 million, nearly $2.7 million for the installation.
Yes,
So can you explain to me in a little bit more detail what's involved in the installation?
Yes.
Insofar as removing and installing a flat panel that costs so much more than the panels themselves?
Yeah, the reason for the expense is so much higher than the cost of the TV is because we're retrofitting TVs into existing classrooms. So we're having to uninstall the projectors, uninstall the smart boards, and install network drops for the interactive TVs. And the mounts themselves are a little more difficult mount because the way a lot of these classrooms are built, there's a chalkboard and then a whiteboard, and then they mounted a smart board on top of that. So to uninstall all of that,
All of it has to come out.
all of that has to come out before a TV can be mounted to it. So what we've chosen is to go with an adjustable floor mount stand that mounts to the floor and attaches to the wall just in a couple of spots, and we can leave all the existing chalkboards and whiteboards up, and the mounts are also adjustable. The reason it costs us so much is because it's a complete redo to go from that old technology to the new technology. We can't reuse anything from the existing technology in that classroom as far as the cabling, the power. The power has to be moved from the ceiling to the wall. Network drops have to be ran to put those interactive TVs on the internet, and it's a pretty big undertaking to retrofit these TVs into these classrooms and to remove the old equipment.
So it does sound fairly involved. I understand that there's going to be installation off hours.
Yes, sir.
To limit any disruption to the classroom.
Yes, sir.
But it's still going to take 17 months to do this?
Yes, we're planning on basically one campus a month. We will have a crew go in that will pre-wire everything and get everything in the walls and in the ceiling, and then the next night, a different crew will come in and they will uninstall all that equipment and install the new equipment, and everything will be up and ready to go for that teacher that next morning. So to get that much done in 2 nights, they can only do about 3 to 4 classrooms per night. And you're talking about 30 to 40 classrooms per campus.
Okay. So and thank you for that. In the documentation that we have a pricing worksheet, and then we have a committee evaluation.
Yes, sir.
And in the pricing worksheet, it has all of the entities, the 8 entities, and the prices. And the entity that's being recommended to us tonight is the 7th ranked entity on the pricing, which is $1.6 million more than the lowest bid. And then we get over to the committee evaluation, and the number 7th entity is now number 1. And I see the breakdown here as far as the scores, but what we're not given is the other criteria and the weighting of that criteria. Can you walk us through the other criteria that was involved here and the weight given to those criterias that would rise this 7th ranked based on price to number 1?
The weight, I'm not sure because this was created by Gary in purchasing when we did the RFP. I can't give you the breakdown of the way it was scored. The scoring was based off of the reputation of the vendor, the past history of the vendor, the price of the vendor. I believe the pricing was weighted at 35%. 25, okay, 25 points. So a lot of these other 8 that you see on there are what I call nationwide vendors. You have like CDWG, Konica Minolta, and Xerox. This is such a complicated install that we offered a site visit. So we opened up the campuses on a day, and we had for all the contractors come in and do site visits. Those prices that you see in there that are around $1 million, none of those nationwide contractors took advantage of the site visits. So when I reviewed their statement of work, there was a lot of things that were left off because not every classroom is the same. You'll have a campus that was built 25, 30 years ago, and then have an add-on that was done 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And even within that same building, the classrooms are different. So we provided that site survey so that these vendors should come out, look at these unique situations, and be able to price this accordingly. Because some of the walls are sheetrock walls, some of the walls are concrete walls, some of the walls have things that have to be removed so that the new equipment can be installed. And the nationwide companies, the CDWGs, the Xerox, and the Konica Minoltas, they basically bid it as a cookie cutter type of install where every room was the same, basically a sheetrock drop. So in my experience with that, anything that's not in that scope of statement of work that they send me is going to be an out of scope charge. So in order to complete that campus, yes, ma'am.
If they say it's gonna be 1 million and they get here because they didn't come and look to see what it would take, and it turns out that it's gonna cost them more, but we said, no, this is how much you said it was gonna be, can't we hold them to the fire and say, no, this is how much we're gonna pay?
No, because they'll go back to the statement of work where they say, we will do this, this, and this, and this in their statement of work, and now what we're asking them to do is not part of that statement of work. So it's what's called an out-of-scope charge. And they will delay the project with those because it'll have to be approved. We'll have to go through the process of getting that out-of-scope charge approved before they can continue on with that project.
And why weren't they working off of a set of specifications written by us?
We did provide the best set of specifications that we could, but because there are so many different scenarios of how these can be installed and what needs to be done per classroom, that we could not write a per classroom RFP to cover every scenario of every classroom in the district. That's why we offered these site surveys, so they could come out and look at the project and then bid that project according to what actually needs to be done.
How many of these entities participated in the site inspection?
Out of these 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe there were 3 out of the 8, 3, maybe 4. It's hard to really tell because you have to line up the subcontractor that showed up for the site visit versus the company who actually did the proposal. I believe there were 4 separate companies that showed up for the site surveys, and those are going to be represented to the ones that are in the $2 million range.
And out of these 8, how many do we think proposals met or got close to our scope of work?
There's one, which was Superior Fiber and Data, because they have a long history with the district. They actually walked, because they're in our buildings every day doing work for us. They actually walked every classroom, and they did an evaluation of every classroom of exactly what's going to be needed. That's the only vendor that actually saw every classroom. Some of the vendors that showed up, they looked at 1 school, 2 schools, but they did not visit all 6 schools, other than Superior.
Was the evaluation of the scope of work taken into account in the grading?
The evaluation of the scope of work. We know because, yeah.
That's how they get ranked 1, I'm
No,
assuming.
Well, let's walk through that. We've got price.
Ranking factor.
We've got price, past history, reputation. Anything
Price,
else?
past history, reputation, and Gary, you may need to help me on this one.
I would think that it would be part of that.
I got that one.
Okay, the criteria is purchase price, 25 points. Reputation of the vendor and their goods and services, 15 points. The quality of their goods and services, 15 points. The extent to which the goods or services meets the district needs, that's another 15 points. Their past relationship with the district or other districts of similar size or educational institutions was 20 points. The ability to comply with laws and rules relating to historically underutilized businesses, 1 point allocated for that, since we do not have a MWBE plan or a hub plan, but that gives us additional funding options if needed. And the long-term cost to the district to acquire the goods and services, 3 points for that. 1 point for the location of their firm, if it's within the state of Texas or not, or if they employ at least 500 employees in the state of Texas. And then any other relevant factor listed in the bids or proposals, such as their qualifications, any certifications or licensees, those are worth that was worth 5 points. These are all standard criteria that are issued in Texas Education Code 44031 that are required to be included in procurements.
So our concern that some of these would not have been able to meet our scope of work, where were those points allocated within these? What would it fall under?
Quality goods and services, and the last one, the other.
Yeah, their reputation, some of these were out of state, and it's going to require the work of licensed electricians to come in. And frankly, their cost to install a plug was at $1 per plug. And we know that you can't do that. You can't even come see it for $1 per plug, much less install it for that. So there was those types of things right there. So
we also did a proof of concept on 2 classrooms at Harrison Lane, and we know from those proof of concepts that it cost around $2,400 per classroom to install this equipment and to uninstall the equipment. So we had a base price of what we know it should cost per classroom, and when someone comes in and says they can do it for half that cost, it really makes you,
Pause.
it makes you pause, and I did a lot of research, especially on CDWG, because they were our #1 ranked in our evaluation. I contacted them on some questions I had about their statement of work, and in that investigation of that, I learned that the subcontractor they're going to use is not even certified in Panduit, which is what we use in this district, so they could not even do the work once I dug into it, because they didn't meet our criteria of the Panduit certification.
I'm glad you did that work.
So even with the entity that we're choosing, are we still allocating $100,000 of additional as contingency based on potential change orders, or what
No,
makes up that 100,000?
No, we're not. I put that in there when we were looking at CDWG. I do have a verbal agreement from Superior Fiber and Data that the proposal that they submitted is a do not exceed proposal, and that every effort will be made to reduce that actual cost in the end. Of course, the longer it takes to get going, the longer the price of everything goes up. But it is a do not exceed proposal, and we think we can get the cost down once we get, because once you get, this is kind of a repetitive job. Once you get a school or two under you, they get a little bit better at it. It takes them less time, and it gets a little cheaper as you go on.
So this request for $100,000 is no longer a request?
It is no longer a request.
And it's not, the price is not part of the motion anyway.
Well, I'm just looking under the budgetary impact statement. We purchased these flat panels out of ESSER funds. These are coming from general operation budget. Are ESSER funds not available for the installation?
We cannot use ESSER funds for any type of construction.
Okay.
Is there any resale market for the smart boards?
I have looked into that, and no, there's no resale market for them. Even the projectors have very, very little to no resale value. It's just very old technology. Those projectors in the elementary school have been there for over 10 years, and they're end of life, and no one has a need for them. We actually have to pay people to come take them off our hands to recycle them.
So there's not even a recycle incentive for them to pay for parts or
No.
strip them or anything?
No.
technology moves so fast because we were so excited our first year on the board when we bought those.
Yeah, we get excited when we can find a vendor that will actually take our technology, our old technology, for free. Because we usually have to pay to have them haul it off.
Any more questions, Chris? Yeah, I mean, when I see stuff like this, and I had mentioned it to Dr. Harrington too, it concerns me when you see such a huge disparity between the numbers, that if those companies that we know did not include everything in the proposal, but they still get included in the calculations, it throws everything else off. And I haven't taken the time to figure out exactly how it throws it off, but you know, the way we've always done it, first place gets 25 points, and then everything else is based off of a percentage of how it compares to that 1,061,000. So we have a big clumping of companies that are all, you know, between 2.4 and 2.8, and that's probably where this project needs to be.
Yes.
But those outliers, the people who didn't bother to show up and didn't give us a good proposal, I don't know why they weren't disqualified right off the bat for not meeting the initial, you know, requirements. And then the rest of the numbers in terms of the score and price would be more in line, and then we'd have a truer picture of where everyone falls if we took out the people that we knew did not
It makes sense
do
to
a
me.
proper quote. But the other issue I have is, you know, we've discussed several times that we'd like to see price be more than 25%. You know, we'd like to, as a board, I think we've all agreed that we'd like to see that be at least 40% when we're taking these things out to be bid on, just because we think that's a fair place to start. But I don't know if any other board member has anything to say about that, but I'm pretty sure that's we've agreed in previous.
Yeah.
So,
I will take that in consideration in our future RFPs.
all right.
I would just add, you know, just piggybacking what both Chris and Matt have said, I guess when a situation like this occurs, we might want to see more data on the rubrics for the decision, because it did look funny going from first place on one to seventh in the other, and then coming back to one.
Yeah, because I have questions about the next one regarding just that.
All right.
I'm also not sure that I like the recommendation, the way it's worded. Should it say, the board approves it says purchase to Superior Data and Fiber. Should it be
Bid.
installation?
The board approve Superior Data and Fiber for the installation, take out the purchase maybe,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for the installation.
Yeah, thank you.
Or the board accepts the quote from Superior Data and Fiber, or
No, just what she said,
Approve the-
approve the purchase, move.
Why didn't you read it
take
that
out-
way?
Take out the purchase to.
I move that the board approve Superior Data and Fiber for the installation of flat panel display units as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve
Superior.
Superior Data and
Superior
Fiber.
Data and Fiber for the installation of flat panel display units as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. All right. Consider approval of audio-visual upgrades to the cafetorium and lecture hall at the Gene A. Buinger Career and Technical Education Academy.
Any questions?
Are there any questions on?
This is the second time this has come.
What's the next, what's the last one I have a
Okay.
question about? Sorry.
All right. Are there any questions on the cafetorium project?
This will be exciting.
All right. I'll accept the motion.
I move that the board approve this purchase to be, hold on, I'm on the wrong one. Am I?
1210.
It's the same one, that's
Same
why
company.
I move that the board approve this purchase be awarded to Superior Fiber and Data Services, Inc. as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the purchase to be awarded to Superior Fiber and Data Services Incorporated as presented. And that motion passes. All right, consider approval of Microsoft EES Direct Renewal. Any questions on the renewal? I'll accept the motion.
I move the board approve the purchase of Microsoft EES direct renewals from Dell Technologies as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the purchase of Microsoft EES Direct Renewal from Dell Technologies as presented. Please vote. That motion passes. Consider approval of RFP 22-21 protective Chromebook cases.
Dr. Hopkins is going to come up and address a question we received.
Okay.
I have this was the question that I wanted to know, was similar to the one regarding the Superior one, is why is Tech Cycle Solutions ranked 1, yet we're going with the second ranked vendor?
That's a little easier to answer than the last one, so I'll take this if you don't mind. We gave them an opportunity to. We wanted to clarify not only the pricing of the product, but also how soon they could deliver. And when we asked them follow-up questions, we submitted questions to them 3 different times, and they never responded. So we interpreted their non-response as either their inability to provide it or that they were no longer interested.
Wow.
Forcing us to go with the second price, the second lowest vendor.
So just for my clarification, it's the same manufacturer, it's the same product, just different vendors, right?
Correct. These are all real resellers of that particular case model. And Mr. Forrester must have had a lot of fun because he received over 40 samples of cases and he had opportunity to test those. And with the harshest condition, yes, he did. He took a bunch of surplus Chromebooks, fitted them in the cases, and the ones that survived were the ones that we decided were worthy, and that was the case that's listed here, Gumdrop. So
Yeah. It's called the Forrester drop test now.
he's a little stress-free these days because of the fun he had in doing that.
All right, any further questions? I'll accept the motion.
I move that the board approve the purchase to be awarded to Connection Public Sector Solutions, Gov Connection, Inc., as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the purchase be awarded to Connection Public Sector Solutions, Gov Connection, Inc., as presented. Please vote. That motion passes. We're ready for open forum number 2. No cards? Okay. All right, other business, opportunity for board members to request items be placed on a future board agenda. If you have any items to, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. All right, so as always, if you have anything, just go ahead and state what you'd like to have added to the agenda, and you can give a brief description, then we'll vote on it.
I have several. One is I like the, what are we paying architects, 5-6 million? I like the architects to come each meeting and give us an update and not wait to the end and just tell us what we're getting. I know they've talked to students and teachers and principals. Kind of like to know what they said, if they agree or disagree. So I like the architects to show up and keep up abreast of where we're going since we're paying them that much money.
On new projects?
No, on the bond,
On
the $800 million bond.
Well, that hasn't been.
Yeah, we don't have one of those.
No, but they're working on it, and I'd like to know the update. Yes.
The bond is approved.
Yes.
We would like that.
So after the bond's
They're
approved-
working now on preparing to give us what they're gonna do with $800 million. I don't wanna wait till that time on what they're gonna do with it. I wanna keep an update until that point on their progress. do the kids like what they are proposing? Do the teachers? Do you know that? Or are we going to wait till they propose it and then we say yes or no? I like to keep an update every time. I mean, they're getting paid a lot of money. Why can't they just tell us each time where they are in that process?
All right, so your motion, your agenda item would be to add a report from the architects
Yes.
at each board meeting?
Yes.
Or each regular board meeting?
Well, you know, there's only
Or
one in
work session?
March and there's one in well, you know, there's 2 a month. They can come at least one time a month.
Okay. Is there a second for that item?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Chris.
Okay, my next one. You ready?
The only thing, like I said, I will review with the architect. I don't see that as a problem. It's just not something we've done in the past. I don't know what the expectation would be, but I'll definitely reach out to them for updates.
Or is it something that could be put in the Friday update?
Or if there's.
It'd be tough to ask questions in a Friday update.
Yeah. Let me work on that with them, but I think, I would think it's doable if we have no new information. We could go every other, depending on the information we have.
Schedule. Could they give us a schedule if they can't come every month?
Mm-hmm.
Could they give us a schedule of when they would be ready to come?
That's a great idea. Let me work with them and propose a schedule of updates, because I know there's still a meeting they want to do with y'all to go through some of that visioning work. And so I know they'll be working with you on that. But let me work with them and I'll come back on that.
The only thing I would say is, on the Trinity side, I'm getting a lot of questions from people in the community that want to know what's going on and what are we doing, how much are we spending, and you're not cutting down the trees, and you're not doing this. And they say, what do you know? I don't know anything. I don't know. You're on the board, aren't you? Yeah. And so I want to know what they're doing, what their progress is going to be, what they're proposing, what's their next steps. Give me a calendar, you know, keep us up to date on what's going on. For that amount of money and to change those schools that much, there's a lot of people that are really wanting to know what's going on. And I don't have an answer, and I'm on the board. And so I'm just suggesting that they keep us up to date
Okay.
on what's going on.
All right, what's your next one?
The next one is, a email went out from Harwood Junior High to every athletic parent saying that every athlete after Thanksgiving would be transported to their high school at Bell and Trinity after their sport was completed. A week later, they sent an email out and said that's not true. Well, I got many calls on saying, what are they doing? Are they going to Trinity? And they said they were, they weren't. What's happening? And I said,
So you want to report on the letter?
I want Fielder to come in and explain about ninth grade athletics, where we're going, why this email was sent out, why was it changed, is transportation the problem? I got a lot of questions from a lot of people. And when they called me and they said, you're on the board? Yeah. Well, what are they doing? I don't know.
Okay, so we want to follow up from Fielder on the letter that was sent out from Harwood.
And I want to know about ninth grade athletics, what's been done. I know the super team's kind of been scratched. Has anything else been brought up? That's the question they're asking me. I don't have an answer.
And we're working on closing that loop, and we will have that probably early January.
Well, good, that's when he's supposed to come.
All right.
That's my second.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second
Okay, my next one is I want a list of elementary and junior high schools of their 201 discretionary funds and also the elementary extended day money. I want to know what school has what kind of money and how do they get the money and what are they spending it on? Because there's a lot of discrepancies. So if you list the schools and discretionary money, it's 201. It's real easy on the computer. Press a button. And then on extended day, they get so much money per elementary.
Yeah, so for what purpose?
We can't discuss, I'm putting it on the agenda so we can discuss it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know these codes, so he was a principal. He knows more than we do about what these codes are, so.
One's discretionary, which is 201, which is not taxpayer money. And one's extended day money, the money that elementaries get for extended day. I have a lot of questions I want to ask about it.
So what's the agenda item? Just a report on extended day?
And discretionary money. Okay, my last one is, even though Dr. Norgard does a great job, I would like the coordinator of math to come talk about the process she's taking. And I went and did my homework, and I listed the 5 lowest scores of each grade level in math last time. And I want to ask her specific questions on the process that she's going to take and what she's doing at, and she can pick her 5 schools, I'll pick mine, on all the math scores. Last week, I want to discuss with her where the rubber meets the road. Now, Ms. Norgard tells us generally what they're doing. I want to, having gone through it, I know there's specific things they have to do, and every school's not the same. I like to know as an educator and a person in the community what's being done with the schools, the 5 lowest scores in math, and some of them are the same in both grades. In meets and masters, they're both low at the same school. So what's being done at that school that's different than being done at the one at the highest rated school? Is there any difference? And what's the process and how are you going through it? Just simple questions.
Okay, so we want to report on those scores, but it's up to Dr. Harrington to determine who will come and speak to us about it.
Well, I'd like the coordinator of math.
Well, we can ask Dr. Harrington if that's what.
Let me ask a question, though. Is there a specific grade level of information you're looking for?
Well, this is grade 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's what we went over the last time in our last meeting. And I marked the charts, and their 5 can be different than my 5. But there's some that there's 3 on this page in 3rd grade where the same school is the lowest in meets and masters at the same school. They're the lowest of the 5. What's being done in those schools that are different than the ones that are the highest? The highest, usually you kind of keep doing the same thing, but I want to know specifically what's being done in the low-performing schools to improve those math scores.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, do you have notes of all those, Dr. Harrington? Or any clarification questions? All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, next, 1402, consider nomination of board member to serve on the HEB Chamber of Commerce Governance Relations Committee. Currently, Mr. Campos has been serving in that role. Does anybody else have an interest in serving in that role at this time?
I mentioned to Fred I would have an interest, but I asked him what day do they meet during the month, and I also shared that with him that on the, whoa, where is that? Dates to remember, like for instance, for January 18th, it says Chamber Board of Directors Planning. I didn't know that was the same thing as the Government Relations Committee or not, and if it is, then that means is that the same meeting?
I don't think it's the same meeting, Dawn.
So this is not the day. What day does that?
Planning.
What day do you go to the Government Relations Committee meeting?
Get it on.
Is it a once a month or
It's a once a month, yes.
do you know what day of the month it is?
Well, the next one will be on January the 18th.
So that is the same meeting you think? Okay, so we just need to change the wording on here to say Government HEB, or rather Chamber Government Relations Committee,
It's,
if it's the same thing. And if so, I would be interested because that's the day I'm available.
meeting, I guess, is what she's referring to. Yeah, we'll work it
The
out. Dawn.
chamber, but I would, if it is that same day, I would be interested.
Yeah,
And are you okay with that? Or do
Absolutely.
you want to continue serving?
no, I'm totally okay if you want that.
Okay.
All right, so I will accept the motion.
I move that the board nominate Dawn Jordan Wells to serve as the board's representation on the HEB Chamber of Commerce Governmental Relations Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the nomination of Don Jordan Wells to serve on the board as the board's representative on the HEB Chamber of Commerce Governmental Relations Committee. Please vote. That motion passes. Item 14.03, consider approval of the Texas Association of School Boards TASB membership renewal. I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board approve the membership renewal of the Texas Association of School Boards at a cost of $11,000 as budgeted in the board's budget.
Second.
I have a motion, any second, any discussion? I have a motion second for the board to approve the membership renewal with the Texas Association of School Boards at a cost of $11,000 as budgeted in the board's budget. Please vote. And that motion passes. Consider approval of Texas Association of School Boards Legal Assistance Fund membership renewal. Any discussion? I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board approve participation in the Texas Association of School Boards, TASB's Legal Assistant Fund at a cost of $500 as budgeted in the board's budget.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve participation in the Texas Association of School Boards TASB Legal Assistance Fund at the cost of $500 as budgeted in the board's budget. Please vote.
Julie, what does that cover?
The legal assistance,
Yeah, what does it cover?
it
I know
covers,
we went to the Fifth Circuit one time, and I think they reimbursed us.
yes, that's what it is. It's a pool of districts all in together, and can be used for any of those type of suits that can come up.
As opposed to our one that we have on retainer, which one takes precedence?
It depends on the case. This may be a good time, though, to, as a point of privilege, to mention that we just received our TASB by board rebate, which offsets both of these costs.
Wow.
Because it's 23,000.
20-something, I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
That is good to know.
All right, so that motion passed. 14.05, consider approval of 2023 Texas Federal Advocacy Conference. And I'll let Ms. Cole speak to this.
So, since we are no longer members of the NSBA, TASB is putting together a federal advocacy conference in DC, February 6th and 7th. It's going to follow a similar format to what we are used to with the NSBA advocacy conference, in that you'll go in on Sunday and you'll meet on Monday, and you'll have speakers and you'll have presentations and learning, and then on the second day you'll go to the Hill and you'll meet with your local lawmakers. The difference in this conference is really in the cost. The cost of the NSBA conference ranged anywhere from $1,000 to $1,300 per person. This one is with early registration is $325. TASB was able to really negotiate a really good, solid rate.
All right, so in the past with the National Association of School Board Conference, we typically give the opportunity for 2 board members a year to go. So I think that's what's on the table, is discussion as to which board members would like to attend, and then we can vote as to whether to approve that attendance.
I would be interested in attending that.
Okay.
I'm out.
I'd be interested, but I don't want to take a spot for somebody else that has never been.
Anybody?
Okay.
All right, so I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board send Julie Cole and Don Jordan Wells to the 2023 Texas Federal Advocate Conference in Washington, D.C.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to send Julie Cole and Don Jordan Wells to the 2023 Texas Federal Advocacy Conference in Washington, D.C. Please vote. It's like can only do one of us at a time.
Yeah.
And that
Hopefully
motion
reboot
passes.
helped.
All right, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Okay. And